A very good morning, students. We are in module 4 right now, as you all know. In the previous class, just a reminder of what we have done. So we have completed joining process and we have just begun an introduction with the gears, right? So as per the syllabus in module 4, we had engineering materials first, which we had finished, and then we had joining process, and after joining process, now we are into the next part and the final part, that is gear drives and belt drives. So I've just started with the gear drives in the previous class. I've explained you what are the different types of gears, right? So today we will continue from where we had left in the previous class. Gear classifications. So according to the position of axis of the shafts, gears are classified into three types, that is parallel shafts, intersecting shafts, and non-intersecting and non-parallel gears. Okay, so according to the position of axis of the shafts, we have parallel, intersecting, non-intersecting, and non-parallel. Okay, then according to the peripheral velocity of the gears, we have low velocity gears, medium velocity gears, and high velocity gears. We will see the example for parallel shafts, intersecting shafts, and non-intersecting and non-parallel in the coming slide. I've just given you the classification right now. Okay, so other types of classification here, according to the type of gearing. Okay, there is something like external gearing, internal gearing, and the other one is rack and pinion. So what is external gearing? External gearing means the teeth of the gears are on the outer side of the circumference of both the gears, and when one gear meshes with the other, then it is called as external gearing. Alright, now what do you mean by internal gearing? Now internal gearing means you will have two gears where one of the gear will have teeth inside, not on the outside of the circumference, inside that, and the other gear will have external teeth. So when they mesh, that means one gear will be inside other gear, then we call that as internal gearing. Alright, if both the gears are having teeth on the outer side and they are meshed from outside, then it is called as external gearing. Now if one of the gears are inside, okay, and the other gear is on outside and they are meshed with one another, where one gear will be within another gear, we call that as internal gearing. And the third one is called as rack and pinion, which we have already seen in the previous case, isn't it? So one will be called as pinion, which is circular, and the linear one is called as rack. So meshing of that is another gearing, type of gearing, that's called rack and pinion. Okay, then according to the position of the teeth on the gear, we have straight, inclined, and curved. That is depending on the position of the teeth. You can have straight teeth, inclined teeth, and curved teeth. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I have told you that we will have examples for each of them, right? So first one, according to the classification, we had parallel gears, right? So parallel axis shafts, example is spur gear, where when the two gears are meshing with each other, the axis of the shafts will be parallel. Okay, so usually parallel shafts example is helical gears as well as spur gears. So you can see spur gears and helical gears both are example for parallel axis shafts. Okay, then there is one more type of gears, that is called as spiral gears. So which is an example for non-parallel and non-intersecting. Okay, that means the axis of the shafts are not parallel to each other and also they are not intersecting. Then we have bevel gears. We have studied about bevel gears in the previous class. So these are example for intersecting axis shafts. Okay, so the axis of bevel gears are in parallel, isn't it? They are not parallel, but they are intersecting. So one will be in one axis, the other will be in another axis. They can be intersecting with each other. Next one is elliptical gears. So these are example for parallel axis shaft to obtain variable motion for driven shafts. So elliptical gears means they are not circular in nature. They will be having an elliptical circumference. So what will happen is the shafts can be parallel, but they can have variable motions. Next one is worm gear. We have seen this. They are also example for non-parallel and non-coplanar. That means their axes are not parallel, and at the same time they are not on the same plane. They are non-coplanar axes. And the last one is rack and pinion, where they convert rotary motion into linear motion. In all the other cases, most of the cases, the motion will remain the same. It will be rotary motion transferred from one point to another. But in case of rack and pinion, the motion itself will change. That is, pinion will be having rotary motion that will be converted into linear motion of the rack. So when you give rotation, there will be straight motions, linear motions. Okay, so gears for connecting parallel shaft, we have already seen. You can see the example of spur gear as well as helical gears. So I would like to just give a little more explanation on this meshing of the gears. So you can see there is, in the case of spur gears, right, we have two gears here, one with blue color and other one is with green color. So one is named as gear A and the other one is named as gear B. Now one of them is called the driver and the other one is called as driven. So what do you mean by driver? So driver is the one to which the power is supplied. Okay, so it has the power of rotating, so that is rotating, whereas the gear B is called as driven. That means it is not connected to any power source, that will rotate because of A. A will drive gear B. That means A becomes the driver gear, B becomes the driven gear. Okay, so that is one thing. Second thing you need to note here is that you can see the direction that is given here, right? There's a direction mentioned here. Gear A is actually rotating in anti-clockwise direction. So when you mesh another gear B with that, you can see the direction of rotation is different. It will be in clockwise direction. So when we have two gears meshing externally, so I was just talking about this process of external gearing and internal gearing, right? So in this case, the sketch what is representing is an external gearing, where both the teeth are on the outer side of the gear and they are being meshed externally from outside. So when an external gearing takes place between two gears, then the direction of motion will be opposite to each other. That means if the driver is rotating in anti-clockwise direction, the driven will be rotated in clockwise direction and vice versa. If driver is in clockwise, the driven will be in anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so that is one thing I wanted to say about external gearing, about the direction, and what do you mean by driver and what do you mean by driven. You need to remember this concept later on also. We need to know what is driver, what is driven. There should not be confusion with that. Okay, bevel gear, as I've told you, example for intersecting shafts. So you can see the shafts here, right? So this is one gear. So the shaft of this will be vertical, whereas the shaft of the second one, where it is connected, it will be in this direction. So you can see they will intersect. That's why it's called as intersecting gears. Okay. So bevel gear is an example for intersecting shaft. Non-intersecting and non-parallel, you can see worm and wheel mechanism here, worm and wheel gear. So you can see the axes, they are non-intersecting, so they will never intersect. If you see, this will be having in this direction, it's a shaft, and the other one is having in different plane. So they are not intersecting and also non-parallel. Alright, so next we are going to study about gear terminologies. So different terms that is associated with gears, generally spur gears. Okay, so we are talking about what are the different various terms that will be used in the gear. So we have not studied anything about that till now. We are only saying it is gear, teeth, that's all. So what are the different things that you need to know with respect to gear? Alright, so you can see here this sketch represents the outermost part of the gear. That means this is one teeth we were talking about. This is the next teeth, and so on. It has many other teeth over the circumference of the gear. So the center is somewhere in between. It is not at all shown. So what is shown here is just the outer circumference where there are teeth, right? So you have one teeth, second teeth. Obviously, after this we have third, fourth, so on in the circle. So let's just go through what are the important points, important terms that is used here. So let us start from here. Okay, so let me explain this particular circle. There is a circle over here, right, on the top, and there is a circle in the center, exactly passing through the center, and there is a circle at the bottom, right? So the circle which is on the top of the teeth, that means which is passing through the tip of the teeth. And remember one thing, all these circles are having center same. So these are all concentric circles. Okay, we are all taking this from the center of the gear. Okay, it's not taken with different centers. All these are measured with respect to the single center. So this particular point, this particular circle which is passing through the topmost point is called as an addendum circle. Okay, it's mentioned over here. If you can see, it's called as addendum circle. Okay, maybe these terms are new to you. So when I say addendum, you may not really know what it is. Okay, so this term is, the circle is called as addendum circle. What do you mean by addendum? So addendum means it is the distance from the center circle to the top in the gear. Okay, so that is mentioned over here. You can see. So there is a circle in the center here. So this circle is called addendum circle, and there is another circle which is passing through the center of these teeth throughout. Okay, that circle is called as pitch circle. So the distance from the pitch circle to the addendum circle, that distance is called as addendum. Okay, there should not be any confusion. The distance measured in mm, okay, from the pitch circle to the addendum circle, that distance is called as addendum, and the circle which is passing through the topmost point of the teeth is called as addendum circle. Okay, that is addendum circle, and the distance from the addendum circle to the pitch circle is called as addendum. Alright, now similarly there is one more term that is called as dedendum. Okay, one is addendum, one is dedendum. Now what is dedendum? So dedendum means you can see another circle there, right? You have another circle passing through the bottommost point of the teeth, this circle. So that circle is called as dedendum circle or root. Okay, root or dedendum circle. Now, what do you mean by dedendum now? Addendum means distance from the pitch circle to the addendum circle. Similar way, dedendum means it is the distance from the pitch circle to the dedendum circle. That is called as dedendum. The circle passing through the bottommost point of the teeth is called dedendum circle or root circle, and the distance from the dedendum circle to the pitch circle is called as dedendum. Okay, then you can see another circle there, right? There's another circle which is just above the dedendum circle. That is called as clearance or working depth cycle, just above the dedendum circle. You see, there is one circle, this is dedendum, and there is one more circle just above that, that is called as clearance circle or working depth circle. So that small gap, the distance between the dedendum circle and the working depth cycle, that distance is called as clearance, and that clearance is very much important for meshing of the gears. If the clearance is not given, there is a possibility of the gears may get jammed. The clearance is very important. Okay, next we have finished what is addendum circle, what is dedendum circle, what is pitch circle, what is addendum, what is dedendum. So next we have to see something called as circular pitch. Okay, there is one more term that is called as circular pitch. So you can see here. Now what is circular pitch? Circular pitch is the distance from one point on the tooth on the pitch circle to the corresponding point on the next teeth on the pitch circle. Okay, am I clear? So you take any one point on the pitch circle of one teeth. From there you take the same point on the next teeth on the same pitch circle. That distance is called as circular pitch. Okay, so this is in terms of gears, or in other screws or threads. If you measure what is pitch, it is a distance from one thread to another thread, that is called as pitch. Similarly, in terms of gears, it is the point on one teeth on the pitch circle to the corresponding point on the next teeth. That distance is called as circular pitch. Okay, so that's about circular pitch. Then we have something called as face width. So you can see here this distance, that is the thickness of the teeth, that is from starting till the end point, the same distance, whatever distance it has, that thickness of that particular teeth is called as face width. Okay, then there are some other points also, but majorly I wanted to specify on these things. You should know what is pitch circle, you should know what is addendum circle, you should know what is dedendum circle, you should also know what is addendum, what is dedendum, what is clearance, what is circular pitch. Apart from that, there are some more things you can see here. Then something called as a top land. So this part of the teeth on top face of the teeth is called as top land, and on the side of the teeth, okay, so this part of the teeth is called as top land, and on the side till the pitch circle here, half of that of the profile of the teeth till here, that is called as face, and the bottom portion of that is called as flank. Okay, that is called as flank. And then there is tooth thickness. I think that you can understand, that is the thickness from one end to other end of the teeth. This distance is called as tooth thickness, and from front end to the rear end is called as width of the teeth. This is face width and this is tooth thickness. Alright, so that is about the different gear terminology. So the explanation whatever I've gave is not in the slides coming on, the definitions are not there, but it's there in the notes. You can always refer there. Okay, suppose if the question is asked on draw neat sketch on gear and explain the terminologies, you should at least explain some of the important points like what is addendum, what is dedendum, what is pitch circle, what is addendum circle, what is dedendum circle, what is circular pitch, and what is clearance, and of course some other points, but the main points have to be explained. Alright, so next is gear trains. Okay, so till now we have studied what is gears, what are the different types of gears, right, and what are the gear terminologies, what are the things that is associated with gears. So that's all about individual gears, right? But whenever practical applications of gears are concerned, you will not have only one gear, or every time it won't be that one gear is meshing with second gear, right? Gears are usually connected in multiple ways, because we may want the reduction in speed or increasing in speed, or there may be requirement in change in direction every time. So many gears will be usually connected together. So whenever we want variation in speeds, change in direction of speeds, right, so we may have to connect multiple gears. So it's not that only we have gear A and gear B all the time. There can be more than two gears. So when more than two gears are connected together to transmit power from one shaft to another shaft, we call that as gear trains. Okay, So name is very simple, gear train. So you know what is the meaning of a train, right? So when we have connect multiple bogies to that, we call that as a train, not only one. So similarly, gear train means when you have more number of gears connected together, right? We call that as gear train. So by definition, when we have two or more gears that are made to mesh with each other to transmit power from one shaft to another, such a combination is called as gear trains or train of toothed wheels. Okay, so generally we call that as gear trains. So I hope you understand. So they won't be only gear A and gear B. There may be gear A, gear B, gear C, gear D, so on. So when multiple gears are connected together for transmitting power from one point to another point, we will call that as gear trains. Now, depending upon the arrangement of these gears, how the gears are being placed, one, if there are 3 or 4 gears, how they are arranged, how they are made to mesh with each other, depending upon the type of arrangement, the gear trains may be called as simple gear trains, second one compound gear trains, third one reverted gear trains, and fourth one epicyclic gear trains. Okay, so there are 4 types of gear trains. One is called the simple gear trains, second one is called compound gear trains, third one is called reverted gear trains, and fourth one is called as epicyclic gear trains. Okay, now what do you mean by simple gear trains? Simple gear trains means you have gear A meshing with gear B meshing with gear C. So there are 3 gears which are meshing. A is meshing with B, B is meshing with C, or if there is D, C is meshing with D. So if it is meshing, order is like that, A with B, B with C, C with D, then such an arrangement is called as simple gear trains. Okay, let me give you a simple example. If at all, let's say you have gear A and gear B is meshing with each other externally, then what will happen? Gear A, let's say it's rotating in clockwise direction. So gear B, when it is meshing with the A, will rotate in the opposite direction, right? That's what we have seen in the previous slides. So now my intention is to make gear A as well as the output gear, driven gear, to rotate in the same direction. What am I supposed to do? When I mesh A with B, obviously if A is rotating in one direction, B will rotate in opposite direction. Now if I want, my requirement is such that the output gear is also supposed to rotate in the same direction. What am I supposed to do? What I'll do is I'll insert one more gear in between. That means if I want to have gear A and the output gear to rotate in the same direction, what I have to do is very simple. I need to insert another gear in between. Then what will happen? Gear A will mesh with gear B, the intermediate gear which I have joined now. So A will rotate clockwise, B will start rotating anti-clockwise. Now I am connecting B with the C. Now what will happen? C will be rotating in one direction, B will be rotating in one direction, C will start rotating in opposite direction. That means A and C will be rotating in the same direction, isn't it? If A is rotating in the anti-clockwise direction, B would rotate in clockwise. Now when B and C are in meshing with each other, when B is rotating in clockwise, C would obviously rotate opposite. That means A and C will rotate in the same direction. So I'm just giving an example. So that forms a simple gear train. Okay. Now what is compound gear train? Compound gear train means if there is more than one gear in a single shaft. In previous example what I told, A is connected to one shaft, then B is connected to another shaft, and C is connected to another shaft. So in each shaft one gears are there. A is meshing with B, B is meshing with C. If it is compound gears, that means I will have gear A in one shaft. There may be a possibility that there is gear B and gear C. There are 2 gears in one shaft only. Then it becomes a compound gear. Now C is connected to D. 4 gears are there, A, B, C, D. Now A and B are directly connected. B and C are not meshing with each other, but B and C are in the same shaft, same rod. Now C is connected to D. Now why this is required? Because I want maybe speed reduction. I don't want the same speed at which B is rotating. I don't want D to connect. So I'm connecting one more gear C, and from C I will connect it to D. Or I don't want it in the same axis. I don't want it to have in the same axis. I want gear D at a certain distance. Then I have to connect different gear there, right? So A is connected to B, and at a certain distance there is C, and then we have D. Anyways, you may not, if you are not following it, I will show that in the sketch. Similarly, we have reverted and epicyclic. So we are not concerned more about reverted and epicyclic. Okay, so we'll just show you these simple gate trains and compound gate trains in the next sketch. Okay, so next you have something called as velocity ratio. This is another important concept. Velocity ratio. What do you mean by velocity ratio? It is defined as the ratio of angular speed of the driver gear to that of the angular speed of the driven gear. Okay, so velocity ratio is nothing but the speed of the driver divided by speed of the driven gear. Now let us assume gear A or gear 1 and gear 2. Gear 1 is meshing with gear 2. Now gear 1 is rotating at certain speed, right? You are meshing gear 2 with that. So gear 2 will also start rotating at certain speed. Now the number of the speed will depend upon the number of teeth in the gear. If gear A and gear B are of same size and having same number of teeth, then the speed will be same. But if gear A number of teeth are different, gear B number of teeth are different, then the speed will be different, isn't it? That's understood. If gear A is larger, gear B is smaller, then whatever speed gear A is rotating, gear B will be rotating much faster than that. Why? Because the size is smaller. So speed will vary. So let's take the speed of the driver is N1 and speed of the driven is N2. Now velocity ratio means N1 divided by N2, speed of the driver divided by speed of the driven. What value you get, that is called as velocity ratio. So that is called as N1 by N2, which is also equal to, okay, so when sometimes in problems for you, particularly for solving the problems, they will give you one of the values and some values they will not give. You have to find out. So it is not that velocity ratio you will know only one thing, that is always N1 by N2. No, N1 by N2 is also equal to T2 by T1, which is also equal to D2 by D1. Now what are those terms? I have already told you what is N1 and N2, isn't it? N1 is the speed of the driver, N2 is the speed of the driven gear. Similarly, T1 is the number of teeth in the driver gear or first gear, T2 is the number of teeth in the driven gear, and similarly D1 is the diameter of the first gear, D2 is the diameter of the second gear. So velocity ratio is equal to N1 by N2 is equal to T2 by T1 is also equal to D2 by D1. So you need to remember this formula. You will need this in the problems also. They will ask only these problems with respect to velocity ratio. So velocity ratio VR is equal to N1 by N2 equal to T2 by T1 is equal to D2 by D1. Okay, then there is something called as train value. So the train value is nothing but the reciprocal of velocity ratio. So it's very simple. If they ask in case in the examination, if they ask you to find the train value, you first have to find the velocity ratio. Whatever answer you get, 1 divided by that value will be the train value. Okay, I hope you understand. I'm just saying, for example, you got the velocity ratio as 5. After calculation, N1 by N2, everything you calculate, you got the answer as 5. Suppose if the question they ask what is the train value is equal to 1 by 5. So whatever answer you get, 1 divided by that will be the train value. Okay. So next, advantages of gear drives. So this you can write in your own terms. You will, if you know. So it transmits exact velocity ratio. Okay, so compared to any other transmission methods like belt drives and all, there is possibility that there may be slippage and other things, but whereas gear is concerned, they transfer exact velocity ratio. Second point, it may be used to transmit large power. Okay, that is one more advantage. High power can be transmitted from one gear to another gear. One more thing is, it may be used for small center distance of shaft. Okay, you can call it as advantage as well as disadvantage in some other case, but many of the cases transmitting at a certain distance becomes easy when the distance is very small and you have to vary the speeds, vary the power. Then you have to use gears only. There's no other way, there's no other option to use anything else. So gears are particularly used when the center distance are very small. That is, from the input to the output, if the distance is very, very small, then gear is the only option. Fourth one, it has very high efficiency, it has reliable service, it has a very compact layout. That means it is very small in size. Okay, so those were some of the advantages. Coming into some of the disadvantages of gear drives. First one, since the manufacturing of gears requires special tools and equipment, it is costlier than other drives. That is true. Making the profile of the gears or manufacturing the gears is not that easy, right? Because you have to carve the teeth properly, and that teeth also we have not gone into depth of that because that is not there in the syllabus. You need not know what is the profile of that. Okay, the profile of the teeth is called involute profile. So that is not just cutting some straight lines or that. If you have seen the gear terminology sketch, you would, if you had observed it properly, you would see the profile of the teeth. Okay, it is made up of so many curves. Actually, the teeth, it's not that you have only one slant line on other side. Okay, the profile is called as involute profile. To make that profile, it is not easy. You need special tools to do that. So the production or manufacturing of the gear becomes costlier compared to any other drives. Second point, with continuation to the first only, the error in the cutting teeth may cause noise and vibration during operation. So the gear cutting or the teeth that is produced should be very much accurate, and if there is any mismatch in the gears, it will result in noise and vibration, and in turn it will spoil the gears, right? So it has to be very precisely cut so that the proper meshing of the gears take place. Third point, it requires suitable lubricant and a reliable method of applying it for the proper operation of gear drives. Okay, this is something that there has to be gear oil all the time. There has to be lubrication done because it will be transmitting power usually at high speeds. So without lubricant, it is not going to work. You need to have lubricant all the time in the gears. So these are some of the disadvantages. You can say the last point is not actually a disadvantage. Lubricant is definitely needed whenever there is a rotating parts, right? So these are some of the points with respect to gears, some of the advantages as well as some of the disadvantages. Alright, so next we have to see the velocity ratio for compound gears. Okay, what explanation I have given in the previous case is the velocity ratio for simple gears, right? Or when we only have two gears, gear 1 and gear 2. I told you the velocity ratio is N1 by N2, that's equal to T2 by T1, that is also equal to D2 by D1. That is for two gears. But and as I told you, in compound gears there can be more number of gears, right? There can be 3 gears or there can be 4 gears or even more. So in that case, how do you find the velocity ratio? If there are 3 gears, that is, one is driver, then there is an intermediate gear and another gear and so on. So in that case also we should be able to find the velocity ratio, isn't it? So taking into example, there are 3 gears here. Okay, so if you see here, we have gear 1, gear 2, gear 3. So this is the front view and you have the side view here. So this is one of the gears meshing with 2 and 2 is again meshing with 3. So let us assume that the speed of the first gear is N1, speed of the second gear is N2, speed of the third gear is N3. Similarly, let us assume that Z1, in this case, instead of T they have taken Z. Z1 is the number of teeths on the first gear, Z2 is the number of teeths on the second gear, Z3 is the number of teeths on the third gear. Okay, so diameter is similarly not required here, but let's take D1, D2 and D3 respectively. Alright, so now if I want to find the velocity ratio of these 3 gears, then what I have to do? I need to first consider only first and second gear initially. Okay, so if I consider gear 1 and gear 2, then gear 1 is the driver, gear 2 is the driven. So in that case, velocity ratio of gear 1 and gear 2 is given by, you know it, we have already studied this, N1 by N2 is equal to Z2 by Z1. Right, so you have it here. So when I consider only these 2 gears, first and the second gear, okay, I'm not bothered about third right now. Sorry. So I'm not bothered about third right now. So I'm only concerned about first gear and second gear. So velocity ratio of first and second will be N1 by N2 is equal to Z2 by Z1. Simple. Now let us assume only the next 2 gears, that is gear 2 and gear 3 only. So for 1 and 2, 1 was the driver, 2 was the driven. Now we are considering gear 2 and gear 3. So for this, gear 2 becomes driver, gear 3 becomes driven, isn't it? For third gear, second gear is the driver, third gear is becoming driven. So in that case, if I take the velocity ratio of second and third, N2 by N3 will be equal to Z3 by Z2, isn't it? Because second and third, so N2 driver, N3 driven. So N2 by N3 is equal to Z3 by Z2. Okay, now we have separately calculated for 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. But I want the velocity ratio for 1, 2 and 3 together. So what am I supposed to do? I will multiply 1 and 2. Okay, I will multiply 1 and 2. So when I multiply 1 and 2, it will be on the left hand side will be N1 by N2 into N2 by N3. On the right side it will be Z2 by Z1 into Z3 by Z2. Right. So it will be like that. So you can see here when I am multiplying these two, we have N1 by N2 into N2 by N3. On the right hand side Z2 by Z1 into Z3 by Z2. So if you observe here, N2 and N2, that is speed of the second gear, that is common. So I can cancel this N2 and this N2. Similarly, so Z2 and Z2 will also get cancelled. So what is left out here is N1 by N3, and on the right hand side what is left out is Z3 by Z1. So velocity ratio of a compound gear, and there are more than 2 gears, then the velocity ratio is equal to N1 by N3 divided by Z3 by Z1. So what does this say is that the velocity ratio is independent of number of intermediate gears used. Okay, so that means if you take the velocity ratio, if you observe here, there are 3 gears here, you get N1 by N3, first by last, is equal to Z3 by Z1. So what does it tell you? There is no importance of Z2 in finding the velocity ratio. That means you can have n number of intermediate gears in between, but the velocity ratio will be the speed of the first gear divided by speed of the last gear will be equal to number of teeths on the last gear divided by number of teeths on the first gear, irrespective of how many intermediate gears will be there in between. They are not at all considered by finding the velocity ratio. Okay. So as I was telling you, therefore the velocity ratio is independent of number of intermediate gears used. So for each, hence gear wheel 2 is called as an idle gear or idler. So gear 3 will become a driven or follower. The direction of rotation of the first and the last gear is the same if odd number of intermediate gears are used. The driver and the driven will rotate in opposite direction if number of idler gears are even. Okay, so I hope you understand this particular concept. So when we have odd number of intermediate gears in between, then the direction of rotation of the first gear and the last gear will be same. For example, in this case, we have intermediate gear 1, which is odd number, right? That means the speed of the driver and the speed of the driven is in the same direction. Both are rotating in clockwise. When does this happen? This is when the number of intermediate gears are odd. Now suppose if the number of intermediate gears between driver and driven is even number, that is 2, 4, 6, so on, then the driver and driven will rotate in opposite directions. So these things you need to understand. If the number of intermediate gears are odd in number, the output and the input will be in the same direction. If the intermediate gears are in even number, then they will rotate in opposite direction. And as I told you, train value is reciprocal of velocity ratio. Okay, so this is when we have 3 gears. The simple gear train, we have 3 gears. Now let us check for compound gear train. So this is what compound gear trains is. If you remember, I have told you that I will explain what is compound gear train in the next slide. So this is an example of a compound gear train. So previous case what you saw was a simple gear train, right? So where you had first gear connected to second gear connected to third. So that was simple gear train, and this is called as compound gear train. Why it is called compound gear train? Because you can see in the second shaft, see gear 1 is connected to gear 2, but the same shaft has gear 3 and 3 is connected to 4. So if you see the sketch here, 1 is connected to 2, but 2 and 3 are not connected, but they are in the same shaft. 3 is actually connected to 4. Alright, 1 and 2 are connected, then 3 and 4 are connected. So 1 and 2 are connected, 3 and 4 are connected. Now we have to find the velocity ratio n1 by n4. In such a case, what will be the situation, right? So we will take the same example only. So in the figure you have gear 2 and 3 constituting a compound gear, since both the gears are mounted on the same shaft. Gear 1 becomes the driver and gear 3 will act as driver in this case, because gear 1 is driving gear 2, gear 3 is driving gear 4. Okay. Similarly, we will take Z1, Z2, Z3 and Z4 as the number of teeth on gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, gear 4 respectively. And similarly, N1, N2, N3, N4 be the speeds of gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, gear 4 respectively. Alright. So this is what you need to know. Note there are 4 gears here. N1 and gear 1, gear 2, gear 3 and gear 4. Let us take N1 be the speed of gear 1, N2 for gear 2, N3 for gear 3, N4 for gear 4. Similarly, Z1, Z2, Z3, Z4. Z1 is the number of teeth on the first gear, Z2 on the second gear, Z3 on the third gear, Z4 on the fourth gear. Okay. And you need to note one more thing here. The speed of the second gear and the speed of the third gear will be same. Why it will be same? Because they are connected to the same shaft. Right, even though their number of teeth may vary, okay, but they are connected to the same shaft, isn't it? So speed of the second and speed of the third will be same in this case. Okay. Now, as we did it in the previous case, here also we will take the same way. We will take gear 1 and gear 2 initially, then gear 3 and gear 4 later, then multiply equation 1 and 2 and find out the velocity ratio. Okay, so first we will take gear 1 is in mesh with gear 2. In that case, velocity ratio, this we already know, n1 by n2 is equal to z2 by z1. That is over. We are connecting 1 and 2. Similarly, velocity ratio for gear 3 and gear 4. Similarly, velocity ratio for gear 3 and gear 4. So, n3 is the driver. n3 by n4 is equal to z4 by z3. That is also you understand. n3 is the driver, n4 is the driven, z4 by z3. Now let us multiply equation 1 and equation 2. So when we take the left hand side, we have n1 by n2 into n3 by n4 is equal to z2 by z1 into z4 by z3. Okay, z4 by z3. This is in case of compound gears. So if you note here, okay, n1 by n2 and n3 by n4. Now n1 speed is different, n4 speed is different. But since I've told you that n2 and n3 will be same. Why? Because they are connected to the same shaft. So speed of n2 and speed of n3 will be same. So I can cancel n3 and n2 here. So finally velocity ratio n1 by n4 will be equal to z2 into z4 divided by z1 into z3. Got it? Because the number of the teeth can be different. We don't know that z2 and z3 will have same teeth. That can be different, isn't it? Speed will be same, but the number of teeth can be different. So if you observe carefully, so if there are compound gears, it will be n1 by n4 will be equal to z2 into z4 divided by z1 into z3. So suppose if there were more number of intermediate gears in between, then it will be all z2, z4, z6 divided by z1, z3, z5, so on. Okay, in this case only 4 are there, so z2 into z4 divided by z1 into z3. So the product of all even number of teeth will be on the top and odd numbers will be in the bottom for any number of gears. So in this case it is z2 into z4 divided by z1 into z3. Okay, so these things are important to know, as well as it is important for your problems. In gear drives, the problems will be associated with these two velocity ratio, whatever I have explained just now. The previous one related to simple gear train, as well as this one with respect to compound gear trains. Okay, and you will also have problems associated with this, and you will have to just remember this final part, how to find the velocity ratio. Okay, so with respect to this explanation, whatever I have given, we will take the first problem. Okay, so this is the question, first problem. The problems are quite simple actually. So here they have asked two gear wheels. Okay, two gear wheels having 80 teeth and 30 teeth mesh with each other. If the smaller wheel runs at 480 rpm, find the speed of the larger wheel. That is the question. So what they have given is, they have given you the teeths of both the gears, and they have given you the speed of one of the gears. You have to find the speed of the other one. So obviously we have only one formula related to velocity ratio. n1 by n2 is equal to t2 by t1. Right. So t1 is given, t2 is given, and n1 is given. You will have to find out n2. Two gears having 80 teeth and 30 teeth are meshing with each other. If the smaller gear is running at 480 rpm, find the speed of the larger wheel. So t1 is 30, t2 is 80. So smaller gear means which is having smaller teeth. So then a gear which is having smaller number of teeth, the number of teeth are less, will be the smaller gear, and that gear will be running at 480 rpm. So you have to find what is the speed of the larger wheel. So taking the formula into consideration, N1 by N2 is equal to T2 by T1 is equal to D2 by D1. We need not consider D2 by D1 here, because that data is also not given and that is not required also. What is needed is T2, T1, N1, N2. So N2 we have to find out, right? So as per the question, N1 is 480, T2 is 80, T1 is 30. We have to find out N2. So N2 will be equal to 180 RPM. Okay, so this is very simple question. So don't expect such simple questions that will be asked. But this is one of the examples of how to find the velocity ratio. N1 by N2 is equal to T2 by T1. N1 is given 480. T2 and T1 are given 30 and 80. N2 is not given. So you will have to find out. So N2 will be equal to what? 480 into 30 divided by 80. N2 will go here, 30 will go here. So you can find out the value of N2. Alright. That was the first one and the simple one. We'll take the second problem now. A gear wheel of 20 teeth drives another gear wheel having 36 teeth running at 200 RPM. Find the speed of the driving wheel and the velocity ratio. So they have also asked you to find the speed of the driving wheel and also to find the velocity ratio. So similar, same question it is, whatever asked in the previous one, the same thing. So T2 is 36, T1 is 30, N2 is 200. Okay. So there's no confusion with taking the teeth. Okay, you can take anything, but you need to take the corresponding teeth and speed, because it's read the question here. A gear wheel of 20 teeth drives another gear wheel. That means gear wheel with 20 teeth becomes the driver. Okay, that becomes a driver. So that has to be N1. I mean considering the first gear. So T1 is 20. Okay, it drives another gear wheel. That means that becomes a driven of 36 teeth. So T2 will be 36, which is running at 200. That means T2 is 36 and N2 is 200. So you have to find the speed of the driving wheel. That is N1 we have to find out. So velocity ratio is N1 by N2 is equal to T2 by T1. So in this case N1 is not given, N2 is given, T2 is given, T1 is given. So N1 will be equal to what? That will be equal to 200 into 36 divided by 20. Right? N1 by 200 is there, it will go to the other side. So it becomes 36 into 200 divided by 20. So the answer what you get is?
I'll go to next question. A compound gate ring.
Okay, sorry. So N1 is equal to 360 RPM, and they have also asked you to find the velocity ratio. So velocity ratio means N1 by N2, that is 360 by 200, that is 1.8. So velocity ratio is 1.8 is to 1. Okay, so that's how you have to find. In case if they ask you to find velocity ratio, it is N1 by N2, isn't it? So now we have found out N1, then we have N2. So N1 by N2 will be equal to 360 by 200. So that is equal to 1.8 is to 1. So 1.8 is to 1 is the velocity ratio. Okay. So next let us go to the one more problem related to compound gates. Okay. In the previous slides we have done the derivation for that. That is not derivation actually, just found out the velocity ratio of compound gates when there are 4 gates. So N1 by N4. Okay, so we'll do that problem. Okay, a compound gate train consists of 4 gears A, B, C and D, and they have 20, 30, 40 and 60 teeth respectively. That means gear A is having 20 teeth, B is having 30 teeth, C is having 40 teeth and D is having 60 teeth. Now A is key to the driving shaft. That means gear A becomes driver and D is key to the driven shaft. That means the last gear is D, it is the driven shaft. So in between that you have gear B and C, which are compound gears which are connected to a common shaft. So B meshes with A and C meshes with the D. Okay, this is the same sketch what I have told you at that time. A is in mesh with B, C is in mesh with the D. B and C are separate but they are connected with the common shaft. Now the question is, if A rotates at 180 rpm, find the speed of D. So what you have to do, first write down the data, whatever is given. Number of teeth for all the gears are given. TA is given, TB is given, TC is given, TD is given. Same way NA is given but ND is not given. So if you just go through the formula what we got in the case of compound gears, that is NA by ND, ND by NA is equal to TC into TA divided by TD into TB, right? TC into TA divided by TC into TD into TB. So we have ND by NA. ND is not known, NA is known. Okay, so ND by 180 is equal to 40 by 60 into 20 by 30. Alright, so we can take ND by NA or NA by ND. Corresponding values of teeth also you have to take. For example, if you can see here, we have in this formula it's given that N1 by N4. So I can take NA by ND is also equal to 60 into 30 by 20 into 40 or 40 into 20. So that will be one and the same. Okay, so there won't be any change in that. So values you can take ND by NA or NA by ND, doesn't matter, you will be getting the same answer. So ND by 180 is equal to 40 by 60 into 20 by 30. On substituting those values and calculating, we get the value of ND is equal to 80 rpm. That is what is asked. Okay, so look at the formula and substitute. So whether you are taking velocity ratio or the reciprocal of that, the value will not change. Okay, here actually as per whatever I have explained there, I have given the value as N1 by N4 is equal to Z2 into Z4 divided by Z1 into Z3. Even if you take it the same way, N1 is 180. So even if you take 180 by ND or 180 by ND is equal to 30 into 60 divided by 20 into 40 also, you get the same answer. Okay, because the formula should not change, whether it's strain value or velocity ratio, it's one and the same. So you get the answer as 80 rpm. Okay, so with this we will stop gear drives. This completes gear drives, but we also have to continue with the belt drives in the immediate next session. Okay, so I will stop here at gear drives, but immediately after this we will start with belt drives. Okay, thank you.